So guys, let's rank the DCEU, and I just reviewed Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Justice League, and whenever they came out, I have reviewed Aquaman and Shazam, which came out really recently. So I'm going to do a ranking video on all 7 of them. And this is also going to be a collab with Derek from Derek's Horror Corner, a really good friend of mine, and we wanted to do like a little collab where, like we did with our Texas Chainsaw Massacre rankings, we just had a segment that we gave to the other person, and we would just say without any explanation what they are in order. And then if you want to hear more about why we feel that way about our rankings, go to our videos. So right now I'm going to give Derek the spotlight and let him have the clip of his video, his segment. So go ahead, Derek.
Hey, this is Derek from Derek's Horror Corner, and I'll be ranking my DCEU movies for you guys from worst to best. Corey, thanks for letting me collab with you on this ranking. If you want to hear my thoughts, come on over to my channel and check out my ranking video. I'm just going to list mine for you. So if you want to know why I put different movies where I put them, you're going to have to come on over to my channel and check out my ranking. So here's my ranking of the 7 DCEU movies. So coming in at number 7 is Suicide Squad. Number 6 is Justice League. Number 5 is Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Number 4 is Shazam. Number 3 is Wonder Woman. Number 2 is Man of Steel. And number 1 is Aquaman. So come on over to my channel and get my thoughts on why I put the movies where I put them. And thanks again, Corey, for letting me collab with you in this ranking.
Thank you, Derek. All right, now let's talk about the DCEU. It had a rocky start for me at first. The DCEU, like Man of Steel. I've only seen this a couple times, and this is my number 7. Speaking of which, the first one is the weakest one in my opinion. Man of Steel, for me, is just bland. Like, there's nothing. These characters are so bland and so boring. And I understand they're trying to make it like The Dark Knight, but they shouldn't make Superman like The Dark Knight trilogy. Like, they shouldn't. It just doesn't work for me. And I haven't even read any Superman comics, but Superman in pop culture, the way that Superman is more whimsical and outgoing, as opposed to this dark, brooding character, which they immediately change in whenever he's brought back in Justice League. So it's not like it stays that way for long, but they wanted to do a different thing, which I do give them props for. I do always appreciate, whether I like it or not, whenever somebody does something unique and does it against the grain, where like people are going to be really mad about it. So Man of Steel has some really great actors in it, and they're just not interesting because of how bland they're supposed to be, how dark they're supposed to be. Superman is boring and bland, and Henry Cavill is a good actor. I've seen him in other stuff, and he's really good. Amy Adams is a fantastic actress, and she's Lois Lane, and she's really boring too. She's not interesting. There's nothing to these characters. Really at all. They're just not very interesting for me. And the action sequences are just to me, they just are boring. Like, all it is for me with these action sequences is them just ramming into walls, like ramming into buildings. Superman and Zod, they just ram into buildings, and there's not much to it. It's just really just boring. Like, again, it fits the boring tone of the movie in terms of how the actors are, in terms of the action is, in terms of how the writing isn't that good, in terms of like having a couple moments of humor in this movie which are really bad, like after Superman snaps Zod's neck. Then there's a joke about drones and a joke about a girl in the military who thinks Superman's hot. It doesn't, like, to me, it doesn't add up with the jokes. The jokes in this, I think, are bad too. But I will give this a couple positives. I did like the scenes of him as a child. I really did, honestly. I really like Diane Lane. She has a great performance in this movie. I really love her. I really like Kevin Costner a lot too, even though they make it to where he seems like an asshole character, because in a way it's like when Superman wanted to save those kids, he asked his Pa Kent, like, should he have done it, and Pa Kent says, I don't know, you might not have needed to. like sacrifice these kids for your identity. So it's an interesting way of interpreting this because it's not like typical Superman. And not to say Superman hasn't gotten dark before, because I know in the comics he has gotten dark, and the dark thing has happened to him, but I've only seen from the movies and from a pop culture standpoint, it doesn't feel like the Superman that I enjoy. This one is just so bland and boring, and it's too long. 2.5 hours for this movie that's not interesting for me. It's not awful, it's not good, it's just fine. It's average blockbuster that's just dumb. Like there's nothing to it that I really like, but I don't hate it, but I think it's just really just average at best. So, Man of Steel is my number 7. And then my number 6 would be Justice League, which I thought people would probably think I'd put this a little higher. Justice League is one of those movies where it was two directors did it. Zack Snyder directed this movie until he had a personal family, actual horrific family thing happen, and he had to leave. And Joss Whedon came in and finished reshoots and did work on the movie. So the movie is a Frankenstein hybrid of like this is Joss Whedon's way of having humor and Zack Snyder's way of having brooding action, or not brooding, but like his way of action, which Zack Snyder, whether people like him or not, he is an incredible visual director, except for Man of Steel. That's the only one out of all his movies I've seen that I don't think looks good. I think it looks bland and boring. But almost every other Zack Snyder movie, whether I like it or not, looks really good, like visually. And the action is good in this movie, in Justice League. I do like these characters. I do like Batman again. I do like Wonder Woman again. I thought that Superman was better in this movie because he's becoming more of what I think Superman is, like the more not as dark and brooding when he's reborn, like in this movie. And really like the Flash. Like the Flash was really funny. Aquaman was good. Cyborg was the only one that was really boring out of the group. But I overall think this one like has some good things about it. Like I said, the characters are fine. The action's fine. The villain sucks. The villain is just so boring. Steppenwolf is just one of the most bland villains ever in a comic book movie. Like there's no backstory to him. He's just there. He's villain, man. He doesn't do anything different. He doesn't have a tragic backstory. He's just, I'm gonna come here to say exposition and get these 3 cubes, and that's what his plot is. So he's just a boring villain, Steppenwolf. But again, visually, this is cool. Characters I like. The villain sucks, and some of the parts of the movie are weird because it's partially Zack Snyder's and partially Joss Whedon, so it's a weird hybrid of a movie that I think is fine. I like it more than Man of Steel, definitely, but this one's fine. It's not bad. It's not great, but I think it's good. I think this is actually a good, solid first like team up superhero movie, even though it's nowhere near in any league to the Avengers movies in terms of like superhero team up movies. But this one is fine. I enjoyed things about it. There are things that it sucked about it. So this one just isn't alright. Justice League is fine. That's why it's my number 6. And then my number 5 would be Suicide Squad, which people are thinking, why'd you put this over Justice League? For some reason, I love the trashiness of this movie. Like, this is such fun garbage. Like, this is edited so bad. The writing is so bad. These characters, besides Harley Quinn and Deadshot, it's like nobody has a real plot. They have like one exposition line and everybody else is just there in the background. And a lot of people just either disappear from the movie. The movie doesn't have completion on a lot of things. The movie doesn't make sense a lot of the time. But visually, I think this is really cool. It's from David Ayer, who did like End of Watch and Bright, which I didn't like Bright. I haven't seen End of Watch. I think he's done... Oh, he did Sabotage, too. I didn't mind Sabotage, but he's a director where he kind of does quote-unquote trashy kind of movies. And this one has a very trashy personality, but it sticks with it. Like, it's trying to be so silly and so trashy that I enjoy it for its effort in being so dumb. Because this one, again, doesn't make a lot of sense with the story. These characters, besides 2 of them, are not developed. They have like one exposition line and that's it. But Really love Harley Quinn in this movie. I really love Margot Robbie. She is an absolute standout. She is fantastic. Will Smith is good as Deadshot. I liked Will Smith a lot. I didn't mind Jared Leto as the Joker. He's a different interpretation, but he's a gangster Joker, and it fits with the trashiness of the movie, I guess. But he is good for the most part, and he does have a couple weird moments, but I do actually not hate him. Like, I think he's fine. A lot of people hated his performance. I thought he was average and fine. He wasn't awful. He wasn't great, but he was fine. The soundtrack I thought was great. I love how they ripped off Guardians of the Galaxy and used music for these characters, but I like that. I liked how this is kind of like a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of rip off, but trashier, with like a ragtag group of villains led by Amanda Waller, who's going to throw them under the bus no matter what, and they can't do anything about it. So, but also there are other negatives, like they have a lot of action sequences that are just bland and boring. Like, they're not anything like Batman v Superman or Justice League, where like they're action sequences that are visually pleasing. This one is not. This movie is dark, and not dark is in brooding. Dark is in like you don't see much of the action. Like, it's too dark, and like scenes of them on the street fighting off these little monsters that Enchantress created. And Enchantress is a lame villain. She's not as bad as Steppenwolf, but she's really lame. Cara Delevingne deserves better, but she's really a lame villain. And she's got that weird CGI head bob thing where like her body's like shaking like this, and like her head is CG'd on there, and it looks bad. It's a weird mixed bag of a movie, but I enjoy this for its fun, gratuitous trashiness. Like, this is a fun, trashy movie. So I enjoy Suicide Squad for what it is. I think it's fun. And then my number 4, this one went up in the rankings a little bit on this watch. Batman v Superman. And I guess I'm talking about the Ultimate Edition because that's when I watched again. Batman v Superman, like Justice League and like Suicide Squad, it has things that I absolutely hate about it. I hate Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg is awful in this movie. He is horrendous. It is just one of those performances that you watch and you cringe and you actually literally feel embarrassed for his performance. It's just insane, and he makes literally no sense tonally in this dark universe, or at least it was dark at this moment because Man of Steel came out, which was dark, and then this one tried to be dark. And it makes literally no fucking sense that like Lex Luthor is this insane like Riddler Joker type, and it doesn't make any sense at all. He is awful. But this one is one of the coolest visually pleasing like superhero movies ever. It truly is. Like, there are so many incredible shots in this movie. Like, it just is jarring in how people dislike this movie. I get why, every reason why. But I think that this one, in terms of, like, visuals and action, is incredible. Like, it truly is. Those things on this watch truly blew me away. But the writing isn't good. Lex Luthor sucks. Batman's fine. Superman's kind of bland like he was in Man of Steel. He didn't get better until Justice League. And then it's like, and Wonder Woman's good. Like, this is her first appearance. I like Gal Gadot a lot, like I did in Wonder Woman. She's good. But this movie also feels like it's a 10-hour movie condensed into like 2.5 hours if you're watching the theatrical cut, or 3 if you're watching the ultimate cut, because so many things happen, and like it's like there's no lead up to a lot of stuff. Like, a lot of stuff just happens. It doesn't make sense sometimes. Not as bad as Suicide Squad, but it still doesn't make sense sometimes. Like, this movie, and also this movie has the butt of a jokes in the movie where it's like, oh, Batman and Superman fight for 5 minutes, and then they realize they both have the same name. Their mother has the same name, and then they become BFFs forever. And then Superman dies at the end, and then all this stuff about Lois Lane trying to figure out the bullet and where it came from, and all this plot in this 2.5 hour movie, it's too much. It's literally too much. And also, every time they do something in this movie that's going to be a big oh shit moment, they take it away. Like, for example, at the end of the movie, Superman is killed. He is impaled, killed by Doomsday. The end of the movie, last shot, Lois Lane drops dirt on his grave and then starts levitating. You could have saved that for the next movie. You didn't have to have him know that he's alive. are coming back to life. That's just such a cheap cop out. And I understand if like you do it in two different movies as opposed to just one and saying at the end, "Oh, he died, but he's coming back" in the same movie. You could have done that in the next one. So that really is annoying and stupid. And again, this one in terms of visuals, in terms of action, this truly is one of the coolest looking movies, I think, superhero movies ever. Like, it truly is outstanding in how it looks, the epic scope of it, but the story doesn't make any sense. Lex Luthor sucks. Superman's not that great, but Batman and Wonder Woman are great. Jeremy Irons is great. The action and the visuals are great. So it's a weird mixed bag. But there are things that I absolutely think are some of the best, like the visuals and action. But there's so many things that are horrible about it, like Lex Luthor. So it's so bad how mixed I am on this movie. But I liked it even more on this watch, despite having so many issues with it. It's just a weird mixed bag. But I love things about it, and I hate things about it. So that's why Batman v Superman is my number 4. And then my number 3 would be Aquaman. This one was a cool one to watch because going out of Justice League, like Jason Momoa was really good, and I really liked him and the Flash as the new characters. They were really good, and it got exciting to watch like a movie about Aquaman himself, Jason Momoa, because he was such a delight in the Justice League movie. And in this one, it really is a fun, really really solid time. Like, it is really one of the way better DC movies in the universe, DCEU, because this character is so charming and so likable because Jason Momoa has so much charisma. And even though this movie is so over CG'd, it is fun. It is epic. It has epic scope. It feels like the DC universe because it has such a big scope to it. And Zack Snyder didn't direct this one, but it feels like it has to have some Zack Snyder touches with just how visually cool this movie is with the epic scope and sense. And really liked the characters. Really liked Aquaman. I liked Amber Heard's character, Mara, I think. I liked her a lot. And like all these characters I thought were really likable, and I thought they were really fun. And I really liked Nicole Kidman too as the mom. Like, I thought she was really good. And Tamia Morrison, who's the dad, I liked him a lot as well. And Patrick Wilson as the half brother, like, he was good too. And this just had a fun, enjoyable time. And I want to see it again because I just rewatched the first 5 DC movies, but I didn't rewatch this one because I saw it in theaters and haven't seen it since. But I did really enjoy this one on whenever I watched it in theaters. This one just has great charisma, great action, great fun. Like, it's a very fun, epic, like, DC movie. Like, epic is a good word to describe this because it's just got very big scope, or very big fun scope for this type of movie. So I really enjoyed Aquaman on first watch, and I need to see it again. And then my number 2 would be the most recent Marvel movie, or the most recent DC movie. Oops. It'd be Shazam. Shazam is fucking awesome. This one surprised the hell out of me because this is such an incredibly likable movie. Really, really love how this character, the main character of the movie, he is this boy who, like, lost his mother. Like, he's just on his own. He's taken to, like, a foster home where he meets all these colorful family members that he gets to know and love while he gains this power from a wizard named Shazam. So he's a little 14-year-old kid, and then he turns into Zachary Levi, who's this, in this movie, this buff superhero. And, like, it's so funny and so charming with, like, him becoming this adult character and freaking out, like he doesn't know what to do. And his friend, the guy who played one of the kids in It, like, he's so funny, and I like how their banter is about how both these kids are realizing what are they gonna do, like how, like, this guy keeps turning into a man, like, and he's got superpowers, and like it's so funny and charming with how they figured out themselves together. Like, they both try to learn how he has powers. Billy Batson, I think, where, like, he has to figure out what powers he has. And I really love that. I really love the humor. I really love all the characters. I really love how this movie didn't pull any punches with emotional moments, because this movie does get real with moments where, like, characters will get something get, like in the plot, they'll get some bad news and it stays that way, or there'll be a bad revelation where like you don't get a happy ending out of this revelation. And I love that. I love how this movie goes that direction. I love how you don't have to always have happy moments because Billy Batson has things happen in the movie where he just loses things, and it actually is really emotionally touching. And it's just so likable, so charming. I really loved all these characters. This was a really great one. Really love Shazam, and I that's the most recent one, and I just watched it a month ago. I guess I think is when it came out. Really love Shazam. That's my number two, and then my number one would be Wonder Woman. I've gushed about this one too much in my actual video because I did again the videos for all of these, but Wonder Woman is the best one to me because it's got an incredibly likable lead who is such a human character, but she's a character who is a superhuman who has never been out into the real world. She's only been in Themyscira, which is this island made of all women, all Amazonian women that were created by Zeus, and she goes out with Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine, into World War One, where it's a bleak, dark world, and this character who has no idea what the world is past the mascara, she has to go and realize like what it is to be a true hero. And I feel like this is one of the best interpretations of a superhero in any movie. She's lovable, she's charming, she's so naive, but not in a way where she's not smart. She's naive in which she has never been out of this island, this magical island, and like she encounters the bleak realism of this world in World War One of all times in the world. And I love the fact that she learns so much with who she is, how she has to save people. For example, whenever they're on the battlefield and she sees all these people dying, getting injured, and like one person goes up to her and says, all the they're gonna gas all of us, like they're gonna kill us all these women and children. And then she goes up to Steve Trevor and says, I've got to save them. And he's like, that's not the priority. We've got to go and save the people who are keeping the fort, like where we've got to, they haven't budged an inch in a year. We've got to go and stop them. And I love the fact that Diana Prince, like she just sits there like she is so mad that like the world is this hurtful. And whenever she goes and becomes a true hero, when she goes and fights, it is completely and utterly badass. And she is such a badass character because she has an emotional core that just makes her a true hero. She feels like a legit one of the best superheroes because of how emotionally strong her story is, because of her change, because of her growth. It is incredible. The action scenes are fantastic. Really love it all. It feels like it's in the same universe as the DC movies because people complained about the third act, like, oh, it's too silly and over the top, and I understand why people would think that, but I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved how she encounters everything in this movie. She encounters happiness, sadness, love, loss, and then by the end of the movie, it shapes her to become what she's supposed to be, a true hero. And just one of the best interpretations of a hero. I love Wonder Woman. This was an incredible movie. One of my favorite superhero movies ever. Like, I truly love this movie. So that is my ranking the DC movies, all 7 of them. And go check out Derek's video, Derek's Horror Corner, and he should have an interesting, different perspective than me because we always, for the most part, we have similarities, but then we have a lot of differences. So go check his video out too. Tell me down below how you would rank the DC Cinematic Universe, and thank you guys so much for watching.